Retired four-star General Jack Keane is with me now. General, glad you are here. Politics aside, what are the optics to you about this conference in Paris?
Well, first of all, there's nothing wrong with having a conference like this. That climate change has got to be talked about, thought about, and put some policies in play. But I think the problem I have with it, in the face of what is taking place with ISIS and radical Islam and the major challenges that the United States is facing on a global scale, climate change actually takes a back seat to that. And I do agree with the statement that was made that it just doesn't face reality in terms of what's taking place in the world. Look, we got radical Islam and ISIS. We have three revisionist powers, Russia, China, and Iran, all seeking regional domination and all having some measure of success at doing that. And we clearly have cyber attacks impacting this country in terms of espionage, intellectual property being stolen, and money being stolen on an exponential and alarming basis. Those are major challenges that we're facing that all trump the climate change issue.
Yeah, to your point, General, there was a Fox poll that asked people, what are you most concerned about? To your exact point, terrorism was #1 on the list. Climate change was #7. So it points out exactly what you are saying, that people are really worried about their security. I want to know, from your point of view as a former military leader, what do you make of President Obama's foreign policy efforts? Because even a lot of his supporters say they wish that he would be handling this area differently.
Yeah, well, certainly that. It is the one area that doesn't necessarily require legislation unless you're actually proposing a treaty. So it is the province of the president and the executive branch to take these actions. And I think from the very beginning he had one major policy objective, and that was to secure a nuclear deal with the Iranians. And he spent most of the administration doing that. Secondly, to accomplish that, he wanted to disengage from the Middle East, to ensure himself that we would never get involved in a protracted war like Iraq or like Afghanistan. And the Arab Spring came, and all these other developments, the growth of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, etc. And one decision after another was pretty much the same pattern of decision making, and that was to disengage geopolitically from the Middle East and to back down in the face of increasing aggressiveness by our adversaries. And what that has done 7+ years later, the world is a more dangerous place as a result of it. We have lost the trust and reliability that we've always had with our allies, and our enemies, in fact, are emboldened. And I think the American people, by and large, get it just by seeing what's happening around the world.
So, in other words, it sounds like from what you're saying, General, it was penny wise and pound foolish. In other words, we didn't want to get involved, but now we have to get involved, and at a much greater human cost and dollar cost. Is that right?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. And the president is not going to do much about these major challenges other than rhetoric. And they're really being passed to their success, to his successor. And that's why national security is much more a part of the political debate that we're seeing on the Democratic and the Republican side, because anybody running for office knows that they're going to inherit these major national security challenges.
General, we spoke a little bit about this last week. Between Russia, Turkey, and the U.S., how do you see this uncomfortable triangle? Again, as a retired general, what is the best thing that President Obama can do right now?
Well, what we really need to do is recognize that Syria is the cauldron that's causing a lot of the problems in the Middle East. Without Syria, we don't have ISIS, and we don't have the migration problem that's beginning to dominate the European order. And clearly, the terrorism that now is taking place in Europe, the blowing up the Russian airplane, etc., all as a result of the debacle in Syria, the failed state that this 4-year civil war represents. The president has got to get a political solution in Syria. He's got to work that with Putin, and even if it requires some military capability to do that, like establishing safe zones for the refugees and no-fly zones to protect the killing of innocent people, which would ground Assad's airplanes and move us closer to a political solution. That has got to be paramount. But the level of effort that we're applying at that is nothing near the level of effort we applied to the nuclear deal for the last 4 years.
Do you think that was time well spent, General? The nuclear agreement with Iran?
No, I think what we have there, if we're totally honest with ourselves, we've delayed this for 15 years, and then they have a right, by virtue of the agreement, to get and acquire a nuclear weapon. And we'll only wait 15 years if we trust them not to cheat when we know they are likely to cheat. I'm already making the assumption they're cheating right now. Plus, they get $150 billion to continue their goal, which is regional hegemony, using their proxy fighters and their proxy terrorists to achieve that end. So I think it was one of the worst negotiated agreements that I've seen in my lifetime, and it's really sad to see what the challenges that are facing us as a result of it.
General, I like having your honesty and your insight. I'm glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. General Jack
Good talking
Keane,
to you, Deirdre.
joining us there.